sustainable. So it has just that element there, and it was initially deployed in 2010 in Haiti, and now there is a second version of this design. I have an old picture here of what the design was. And this design, as you can see, there are many inventions that went into this design. There is a lot of design work that has been there, a lot of documentation that has been created and that has been transferred to some of the partners, and more that's up and coming. And there is a need for a project like this one to have enough understanding of the need and what can be licensed and how, so that the full benefit of this technology can be fully realized by the partners and by IEEE members. One of the other projects is one that is currently being deployed in Nicaragua. Professor Pali Singh, who's the technical program chair at this conference, he has been working on an open source platform that uses SMS texting to send information about health information from health workers in the field back to a hospital. So it's an open source platform. It's from Humanda, I think it's the group that created that. And he has developed that and deployed it with the National University of Engineering in Nicaragua, and also with the government, the health department in Nicaragua. And he was telling me just yesterday that we're at the point in their project of deploying that more widely in Nicaragua. Now, the one enabler for this solution is the open source platform that allows him to send SMS texting using the SMS as the way of communicating information. On the hardware side, there are some elements, but for the most, it's open source. It's not open source, it's off-the-shelf components. Now, as they move forward, IEEE as organizations would benefit from understanding not just how to be users of that software platform, but also contributors, and then be able to package and contribute that as an organization and grow the participation from IEEE members in something like that. This other project that also came out of the Humanitarian Technology Challenge is connecting hospital with 3D logistics in the Amazon in Peru. So for this one here, we used open source, not open source, off-the-shelf point-to-point Wi-Fi modem, and then we IEEE financed the installation of the system. But the thing that didn't happen with this project, where what would have benefited from having understanding of licensing it, and also how to set up the collaboration with the partners, is that all the work that went into this project was reported back to IEEE, but the terms on how who should be given credit for parts of the design is not clearly defined in those documents. And now trying to build on that and knowing who has claims over this part of the antenna structure there, or they were using some PCs and video communicating with between the hospital and the clinics. That is just an off-the-shelf component where a lot of benefit would come if the solution, what the product that IEEE developed and that IEEE gave to this community was understood, packaged, and made available to more people, so that more development can continue. As it is now, it is a one-off type of project work. The project was delivered, it was funded. Right now, the health department in Peru has taken it over and they're managing this. And because they have the support from the government, it can be sustained and maintained, and it's still going on. But for the IEEE perspective, the investment being given there, besides being able to help the community that need this connectivity, it's not fully, it's not developed to the full benefit that could have in further development. And last one, yes. And we have this design if I can talk about this one here, and Amanda's is right here in the room. It is that in Canada, what we decided to do, and I think I'm going over time, on my time, but so what we did in 2011, we held an open source humanitarian design student competition, open to anybody around the world, but based in Canada. The challenge there was we proposed a platform that was a medical, not a medical device, but a solar system that could power equipment in a clinic. And the main use for that equipment was to provide electricity, and they were using headlamps, for the doctors and the nurses to provide the services in that clinic. So the challenge was for students at universities to come up with any design that would complement or improve that platform, so that we could contribute back that design to IEEE, so that the IEEE would aggregate the different contributions and build like a library of solutions that could be mix and match and evolve. So Amanda and her team were the winners of that competition. Her design was what it would look like here, like just a simple headlamp. It is not just a simple headlamp. It was designed to have a specific characteristics that would make it rugged, reliable, and be able to build it from local sources. And she has a presentation later on in the conference. She's presenting a paper on this, so she can provide more information about what benefits of that solution. But for us at IEEE in Canada and the humanitarian group, this was our attempt to purposely go and try to create open source hardware intellectual property that could be owned or at least licensed by IEEE and shared with others that could improve it. We're still trying to understand it, and the fruit of that effort is having this event, this talk here today. And I think I still have some slides. I'll go quickly. Other designs, this solar controller platform, the Latila logo, also by Professor Pali and his team, is a design that has been deployed in Africa, and development is continuing for the second phase. Then some other projects that went ahead for which I have concerns. For example, there was a large competition in India where they have a lot of participation for people creating solar lamps that could be powered from solar, during the day, and then have a charge for in the evening for people. So over 900 people registered for that, and we have a lot of people submitting ideas. But I know for a fact that by talking to the organizers that they never thought about licensing any of that, or getting the rights to the designs that they saw. So all that effort that was done, it is great, but as you would hear from the speakers here, if you share ideas without claiming any type of license over them and how you would manage that and share that, well, that opportunity is lost, and then there's very little you can do after that, and trying to package that in a way that you can extract full value for that technology. So this is one example. This is a great success on the competition side, but not so much on the retaining value for the technology and the investment from all these volunteers that participate in India. And then we have other events that side groups are doing and ongoing on education in other cases. So all that being said about the IEEE efforts is that it has a lot of interest. It's bringing a lot of people willingly into developing and spending time trying to create solutions that IEEE can redeploy for humanitarian, but still the understanding of how that shall be packaged and reused and shared with others is not fully understood. And with that being said, I think I'll turn it over to Tom and the rest of the team. Thanks.
Thank you to Alfredo and Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Ross. I work for the Eclipse Foundation. It's a not-for-profit organization that helps people build open source communities and companies who are building products with open source. Two of the things that I want to build on that Tom and Alfredo have touched on is basically the idea of collaboration and force multiplication. So basically, if you can share ideas widely, basically allows people to build on that work. If you think of other areas like chemistry and physics and photonics and healthcare, basically people build on each other's works. And so the more you facilitate that, the more value can come from the investment that people put into what they're doing. So This is basically a very brief, very simple presentation talking about open source software. What is open source software? I imagine for some of you this will be things you already know. It's mostly designed to give a bit of a primer and introductions. So at its base, open source software revolves around the licensing model. And there are certain rights that you get from an open source software license that you don't get from proprietary technology. Particularly these three I'm going to call out. So one is to access the source code, so you can see what's being done. You can download it, and I'll talk a little bit in a moment about what that enables you to do. You have the right to redistribute it, so you can basically build something on it. You can redistribute that source code. And also you can build derivative works. So basically you can build on the technology that people have developed for you. Now this is different, as Tom noted earlier, contrasting Firefox and Internet Explorer. Things like Skype, Internet Explorer are very popular software that companies give to you without charge, but they're not open source technology. You can't actually access the source code. And so you don't have these rights. And there's some very powerful collaboration models that come out of this. So this is just a funny cartoon, basically mentioning that if you don't have the right to see what the technology is doing, your options are very limited. And in some cases, companies actually do have a policy. This is actually poking fun of it, but it's actually true that some companies say you're not allowed to reverse engineering your product, you're not allowed to understand, you're not allowed using it for something that they didn't originally intend. That's unfortunate. I'll just read for people who can't see it at the back. It says, you are under arrest for circumventing a technological measure that controls access to this tire, and it looks like you'll be needing a new car. So with that open source license, those basic rights that you have, this enables you to basically make a copy of the source code, use it if you wish or not, modify it, so basically build derivative works upon that, and also contribute changes back should you wish. Now, I specifically call out that the use it, modify it, and offer the change back are optional. A lot of open source licenses, you can basically use it, decide you're not interested, or even decide you want to continue to use it, and you're under no obligation to contribute changes back or even talk about how you've used it. Now, why does this matter? This basically touches on something that Alfredo mentioned in terms of economic development, basically building economic growth, jobs, prosperity from these technologies. So the basic principles of business is basically you take raw materials, you do something with them, your factors of production, whether that's labor, machinery, or otherwise, and you produce a good or a service. The interesting thing about open source technology is if you share the costs, share the risks, and share the benefits, the costs that go into producing your product or service can go down. As well, there's a multiplier effect in terms of the size of your market. Basically, you can engage a larger market, have them try before they buy, because you can give them a free version of the software, and basically increase and get more profit this way. Now, why does that matter? Often, if everybody had to if you had to build your own car before you come here today, or if you had to build your own house, I think society would actually be very detrimental to society. A lot of people would be spending a lot of time just doing the basic things, feeding themselves, shelter, basic transportation. So being able to build upon other people's efforts and other people's work allows you to add unique value, add unique knowledge above and beyond that. So from a company's perspective or an organization's perspective, you can take the work that people have done before you. There's always going to be some sort of integration, some work you've got to do that's sort of unique to the problem you're trying to solve, and then add unique value on top of that. And this is often true for-profit companies, but it can be true for not-for-profit companies, academic agencies, academic institutions, government agencies, and so forth. Now, there's a paper back in 2003 by Nicholas Carr that noticed that people were spending a lot of money on information technology, and they were not getting differentiated benefit from it. So the more they spent into commodity IT technology, they didn't necessarily have the gains to show from it. So this is interesting in terms of software, because you can basically use a lot of great software components. I'm going to talk in a second about a few of them that are actually quite famous. And so the less you spend on them, you're better off. But basically, the less you spend on those commodity components, and you get the same technology that everybody else is using, you're actually better off than spending a lot of money for very expensive software licenses. Now, in terms of collaboration, I just want to call this out. If two organizations want to work together, often one of the first things they're going to do is have meetings amongst the company leaders, a meeting amongst the company lawyers, and with respect to my colleagues. I think I'm one of the few folks in the session that actually is not a lawyer. You're going to have a set of legal documents talking about who owns the intellectual property, who owns the right to the trademark for the name of or mark or whatever it happens to be. And so there's going to be a set of legal documents between those two companies. If you then try to engage a third organization, you're going to have another set of two more sets of legal documents just between those three. Things get very complicated very quickly as you try to grow that community and grow that collaboration. The open source model looks like this. So you basically have one set of legal documents, contributor license agreements that Tom has touched on, we'll talk about a little bit more in a moment. You actually have one culture, so basically people just need to understand one set of rules of how to participate in that community and that collaboration. And of course the intellectual property status is very clear. You're actually removing some of the uncertainty. So some of the things that Alfredo was talking about, those projects did some amazing work, but now there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of who has the rights to that technology, who can use it. What is the status? And often what happens in those cases is nothing happens. It just sort of disappears, and nobody can basically build on top of it. Now, there's a bunch of examples. Just a quick show of hands. How many people interacted with open source software today, do you think? Hold your hand up. So it's interesting to see. So roughly half the room held their hand up. I suspect the number is actually quite a bit higher because you may not know this, but much of the internet is actually running on open source technology. Much of even consumer technology using behind the scenes. So this laptop, this MacBook basically is running open source technology. My smartphone, my Samsung S5 in my pocket is running it. So there's a number of components, things like the Apache web server. I just have a few examples here. The Chrome web browser, a Firefox web browser, Eclipse, of course, the technology that the not-for-profit that I work for makes. Asterix is the example of voice over IP telephony. The Android platform is an example of that. Now, these are all components. So see, there's no real product here. And why is this significant? Well, because people build products on top of it. So things like Google, Amazon, eBay, Facebook. There are a lot of automobiles that are based on open source technology. And so the model is basically you can take those open source components and build useful products and services that people actually want to pay for. And build a for-profit company, or even in the case of not-for-profits, government, academia, build services that benefit people and improve their lives based on that. So in terms of how much software out there, this is actually just the tip of the iceberg. So I added up some very well-known open source software projects. Turns out that this was 149 million lines of code, a rough estimation of $2.6 trillion worth of value. It's all available out there, and you can download it for free, basically build products on top of it. There are companies that stand behind a lot of these things, so in terms of getting custom development, service support, consulting, there are organizations that stand behind them. But this is the tip of the iceberg. The amount of open source software technologies is far greater than this. So I want to sort of shift into licensing, and just to give you a bit of a flavor for licensing, because that's the key theme for this session here today. This idea I want to convey to you is the idea of a license spectrum. So there are licenses on one hand. These are licenses like the Berkeley Software Distribution License, the MIT license, the Apache license. They're very liberal licenses. They allow you to do pretty much whatever you want. On the other end of the spectrum, there are licenses like the GNU public license, the AGPL, slight variation which affects web services, that have very strong provisions in terms of reciprocal. Basically, if you build something on software that's based on those licenses, they compel you to give the changes back. And so they even though they're aiming to do so in terms of freedom, they actually restrict what you can do to some extent. And there's sort of a midpoint where licenses like the Eclipse public license, the Mozilla public license, etc., the LGPL as well. There's a minor wrinkle for the LGPL, so some licenses like the EPL allow you to take the software, build something with it, and relicense the binaries and finished product under a commercial license of your choice. Licenses like the LGPL do not allow you to do that. So they're sort of similar, they're the same class of license, sort of a soft reciprocal license. But in terms of the practical implications of the binaries and the finished product, there's some differences there that are important. This link here, if anybody wants to copy it down, a few years ago we had something called a license debate. So we got a bunch of experts from around the world, brought them together in the room. They actually debated which license was the best open source license. Now we purposely left it vague in terms of for economic growth, for freedom, for prosperity. We left it completely wide open to determine what that was. We put together a panel of experts who decided which license was the best license. You'll have to watch that to figure out which one won in the end. But I think it was a good exercise from an educational perspective to give you a sense of some of the issues and differences between the different licenses. So I'm just going to dig in a little bit to a couple of common ones. So the BSD license, this is on the one end of the spectrum. Basically, and this is very common for open source licenses, you can see you have to retain a copyright notice. Basically, if you're distributing it, you have to say so and retain that license. You can redistribute the code, and basically for any price or no price, because you can give the software away for free, and there's no warranty. So basically what this means, boiling down, is with the BSD license, you can do pretty much what you want. Now, contrasting the other end of the spectrum, the GPL license, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. The second point is the key one. Basically, if you build something on top of GPL licensed software, your derivative work, if you distribute it, becomes licensed under the GPL, whether you intended to or not. So that's important to understand that. So this license is very good if you want to ensure that people who build derivative work, something they build on your work, and they're forced to give away their work as well. Often in open source, people don't give back because the license compels them to. They actually give back for pragmatic reasons. They give back because it meets their business needs or their ideological needs, or they want to because they want to learn the technology. So the license tends to be a very strong way of influencing that. But these are two different ends of the spectrum, and of course there's licenses in the middle, like the Mozilla Public License and the Public License. So. Now, just a quick plug for my organization. So with licensing, intellectual property management, infrastructure, these types of services and infrastructure can be very expensive and difficult to maintain and difficult to get going. There's an organization that we've worked with in the past that estimated the cost of spinning up an open source software foundation to host open source software at $300,000 US or more. So this is the kind of thing that IEEE is considering. It's a very expensive proposition. And so organizations like the Eclipse Foundation, the Apache Software Foundation, the Linux Foundation are organizations who have deep expertise in this area. And Eclipse in particular has a really neat model that allows creating a working group, or essentially